Progressive overload, the idea is to see more difficulty happen in the same type of movements week after week so you can see these increases in your gains and progress over time.
Welcome to the Hidden Summit podcast. My name is Kevin Valance and I will be your host. On this podcast, we're going to talk about fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, and everything in between. If you find anything valuable in this episode, the only thing I'm ever going to ask you to do is subscribe so you can keep coming back and elevate your life to become better every single day.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Happy Friday. I've been sitting here trying to figure out how to use this new camera, so if the audio is crap, then we will do this again. Anyway, wanted to get into some movement theory, some prep for what's coming and what we've been doing. So if we're going to backtrack, really, when we're training, there's a difference between training and working out. You can go and you can work out, you can sweat, you can have fun with your friends. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to see real lasting results, whether it be for fat loss, muscle gain, performance, aesthetics, anything in between, we're going to want to follow a program. And the program that I'm writing right now started back in December with this long cycle that we were going to go through until we get to summer and then move forward after that. When it comes to programming, you can choose and follow any type of program that you'd like. But one of the things that we focus on at Hidden Summit is called progressive overload. Progressive overload, right here on the board. So what does that mean exactly? That means that we are going to increase the difficulty in a number of different ways week after week. And when I say that, a lot of the time when people come in, they're at one point they'll say, "Oh, I'm getting bored. This is the same stuff week after week." And I go, no shit. This is the point of what we're trying to do. Specifically when we're talking about our templated S5 programming, right? Like, it's very hard to write one program that fits everybody's needs, and we understand that. So we're happy to make adjustments with you along the way. It is balanced in strength, sculpting, which is hypertrophy, skill work, which is a lot of gymnastics, bodyweight movement, sweat, metabolic conditioning, and stretching for mobility and movement purposes. So when it comes to progressive overload, I just want to, establish a baseline that we are going to see a lot of similar movements week after week. But when you think about it from a practical standpoint, you're wanting to work the same muscle groups every week to see these changes in your entire body. Now, there's a formula where you can perform X amount of reps over a certain amount of time, and that's the ideal place. I'm not going to even get into the numbers of it all. I really don't particularly care if people do a traditional split where they'll do upper body one day, lower body one day, push one day, pull one day, or if you do a full body split when you're doing one of everything every single week, but you're actually getting the same amount of reps in over the course of the entire week. If you're interested in more on that, I wrote a program which I'll send to you for free. It's called Full Body Flex. All you have to do is complete the form below, and that's a 4-week program that allow you to see progressive overload in a full body split, so you can get in and out of the gym in a particular amount of time that's under 60 minutes. Because that's what I do. I don't want anybody to have to feel like they need to train more than that. And the point is, with that, you can choose your destiny, right? If you want to build strength, you're going to do heavier weight and lower reps. If you want to do more hypertrophy, you're going to have a little bit less weight with moderate amount of reps. If you want to build muscle endurance, you're going to do lower weight and higher amount of reps, so on and so forth. So you could find your sweet spot for what your goals are. I tend to like to put on muscle, but I'm not mainly about aesthetics. So I'll sit between the 6 to 10 rep range for my hypertrophic movements. That's a hard word to say. And with that in mind, I do enjoy doing the compound movements for strength. So squat, deadlift, press at heavier loads. And that's just my preference, because I'll throw in metabolic conditioning. I'll do some zone 2 work, which is going to help me lean out. Cardio, I do low carb, high fat for the most part when it comes to my macronutrients. And that's a nice combination for me to feel good, not be achy, and see progress over time. Back to progressive overload, right? So what we want to focus on is how do we increase these movements week after week? And there's a number of different ways that we can do it. We can increase, I'll write this on the board. I know you probably can't see it. The weight each and every single week. Now that's only going to get you so far, right? There's literally going to be a point where you can't do 8 reps for a certain amount of weight in a rep scheme. So how do we make it more difficult after that? I don't want you to feel like you're stuck and you plateaued. There are different ways to make these workouts challenging and for you to see progress in your performance and your strength over time. The next thing after we are done increasing the weight, we can decrease the rest time. Meaning that if you're used to resting 90 seconds to 2 minutes between sets, you can rest 1 minute to 90 seconds between sets and do the same amount of weight. And that's going to be harder because your body's going to have less time to recover in between sets. I've had people rest as little as 30 seconds between movements, and that has challenged them a great deal. It also saves you time in the gym, so you're not sitting around scrolling on Instagram in between your sets. So we can increase the weight, we can decrease the rest, we can change, and I'll just put this, change the movement. And changing the movement means that you can make the scale of the movement more challenging, right? So think about doing a suitcase grip lunge where you're holding the dumbbells at or no weight at all in the lunge, right? You're just doing body weight lunges. Then you can make those lunges more difficult by doing suitcase lunges and holding 1 or 2 dumbbells, making it a little bit more or a lot of it more difficult for the lunges. Okay, you can hold the dumbbells in the front rack position. So you can hold the dumbbells on your shoulders, which is going to have you utilize more of your core for the movement. You can have one hand overhead. You can have both hands overhead for the lunges. And this is changing the movement difficulty so you can see progress over time in different ways by challenging yourself with that same movement. Now, when you go back and you start over again, you might have to lower the load to change the movement, and you can start to increase the weight or decrease the rest time over time, which is going to make these workouts more challenging. Progressive overload, the idea is to see more difficulty happen in the same type of movements week after week, so you can see these increases in your gains and progress over time. Another thing that we can do when it comes to all of these, as you can do 1, you can do 2, you can do all 3, you can cycle through those, is variables on the movement, right? So changing the angle, going from a reverse lunge, we'll stick with the same example, to a front foot elevated reverse lunge, or a rear foot elevated reverse lunge, which probably doesn't make as much sense, but you could do forward lunges or backward lunges. So you see what I'm getting at. So that goes into the changing of the movement, the variable of the movement, the angle, the height, the depth of the movement. The last thing I want you to think on is time and tempo. So we got tempo here. And tempo means to slow down the movement itself, right? So while I increased the weight and then I couldn't increase the weight anymore, I decreased the rest time, I made the movement harder. What we can do is slow down the concentric and eccentric parts of the movement with how we move in between. So if we look at tempo, typically a movement tempo is going to be 1, 1, 1, 1. Right? So if I'm back squatting, I take a deep breath, I'm 1 second down, I don't pause at the bottom, 1, 0, 1, 0. I don't pause at the bottom, I stand up, and then I take a breath and I do it again. Pretty regular, right? Take a breath in, press, come back down, press, keep breathing the entire time. Now, if I change the tempo of the movement, so let's say we're doing a 4, 0, 3, 0 tempo, this means that I'm going to go down for 4 seconds on the squat. I'm not going to pause at the bottom. I'm going to take my time and challenge myself to go slow on the way up for 3 seconds, and I'm not going to pause at the top. You can change this, so if it's a 2, 2, 2, 2 tempo, you go down 2 seconds, you pause 2 seconds in the bottom of the squat, you stand up for 2 seconds, and then you take a breath at the top, right? So we can change the actual duration of the movement. When we do this time and time again, we're going to see ourselves see changes over time, right? So the other thing that goes along with progressive overload, which we base our programming on, is called RPE, the rate of perceived exertion. Now, if you're doing these things and it's super easy, like a 1 out of 10, it's not challenging enough and you're not going to see the changes that you want to see. So what I would recommend is by trying, if you have a scale of 1 to 10, right? 10 being like you can do 1 rep and it's the hardest thing you ever did, and this is like super easy and you're like, oh my God, I'm not really working out, but no wonder why I'm not seeing any results. We want to see with 5 to 9, this is a great place to be. Oops, I can't draw. 5 to 9 is a great place to be. So 5 is moderate, we're not really struggling here. 6 is a little harder, 7 is a little harder, 7.5 is a little bit harder. I like to stay between the 7 and 8 range for most of the time, and then increase that difficulty as I get to peak week, like this week where it's test week. Today I have to do 1 rep max deadlift. I'm going to do a couple of reps. It's going to be really challenging. So RPE is the rate of perceived exertion. So how you feel while doing the movement. If it is easy and you're on the lower end of 1 to 10, let's make that harder by raising the weight, lower period, changing the movement, or creating tempo in the movement. If you do this, match the progress over time and progressive overload, you're going to see change happen in a positive way. And I'm excited for you to do that because now you have enough information to move forward and see some great changes with your training to increase strength, lower your body fat, and see performance gains over time. I hope this was helpful. If it was, please subscribe below. I make videos Monday through Friday, ranging from nutrition, movement, mindset, life interviews with clients, interviews with influential people in my life and friends. So I want you to be here, have fun with us as we do this. Have an amazing Friday, and I will talk with you guys later.